I didn't know anything about divorce laws, but I knew what it looked like when someone had already decided to leave long before they said it out loud. That was the first thing I thought when she walked into the shop. It was just afternoon, the slow hour. The kind where the fan clicks louder than it should and the sunlight lands in one stubborn square on the floor. I was halfway inside a busted laptop, fingers smudged with grease that wouldn't come off no matter how hard I scrubbed, when the bell above the door rang. I didn't look up right away. People came in, people left. Usually the same questions, the same complaints. But then there was this pause. Not silence exactly, just hesitation. "Is this where I can get something fixed?" she said. "Or is that just optimistic branding?" I glanced up. She was standing near the counter, one hand resting on it, like she wasn't sure if she should lean or not. Mid-40s, maybe a little older, but she carried it in a way that made guessing feel rude. Not dressed to impress, just precise. Everything about her seemed chosen on purpose. The way her hair felt just slightly out of place. The watch on her wrist. Even the way she looked around the shop, like she was memorizing it instead of judging it. "Depends what's broken," I said, sliding out from under the desk. She lifted a phone, placed it gently on the counter like it might bruise if she dropped it. "It turns on," she said. "It just doesn't cooperate." I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. Small crack near the edge. Nothing serious. "What's it doing?" She opened her mouth, then stopped. A tiny pause, like she'd forgotten what she was going to say or decided not to say it the same way. "It freezes," she said finally. "At inconvenient times." I nodded, but something about the way she said it didn't feel like it was about the phone. I plugged it in, tapped through a few things. She stayed quiet. Most people didn't. They hovered, asked questions, filled the space with noise. She didn't. She just watched. Not me exactly. More like the process. "You from around here?" I asked, mostly to break the stillness. She gave a small shrug. Close enough to know I needed help. "That bad?" She smiled then, but it didn't reach all the way. "It's been worse." I didn't ask what that meant. Didn't feel like something you asked a stranger 5 minutes in. But it stayed there, between us, like something waiting to be picked up. I handed the phone back after a minute. "It's not broken. Just overloaded. Too many things running at once." She looked at it, then at me. "So it's my fault?" "Not really. Just means you didn't close what you weren't using." She let out a soft breath, almost a laugh. "Yeah, that sounds familiar." Another pause. Longer this time. I noticed her fingers resting on the counter. No ring. Faint mark where one used to be. You don't notice things like that on purpose. They just show up. "You can leave it if you want," I said. "I can clean it up properly. Make it run like it should." She tilted her head slightly. "And what does that cost?" "Not much." "That's not what I meant." I met her eyes then, properly this time. There was something steady there. Not cold. Not warm either. Just certain. "I'll figure something out," I said. She held my gaze a second longer than necessary. Then she nodded, like she'd made a decision I wasn't part of. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll leave it with you." When she slid the phone across the counter, her fingers brushed mine. It wasn't anything. Barely contact. Still, neither of us moved right away. She pulled back first, clearing her throat like it hadn't meant anything at all. Maybe it hadn't. "I'll come by tomorrow," she said, already turning toward the door. The bell rang again when she left. The same sound as before. Nothing special. But the shop felt different after. I stood there longer than I should have, her phone still in my hand, the faint warmth of where her fingers had been refusing to fade as quickly as it should. And for some reason I couldn't explain, I had the strange feeling she hadn't come in because her phone was broken. She came back the next evening, right before closing. I was already wiping down the counter, halfway mentally checked out, when the bell rang again. I didn't need to look up this time. Something in the way the door opened, slower than most people, gave her away. "You always close this early," she said, stepping inside. "Or am I just unlucky?" I glanced at the clock. "You've got 5 minutes." She nodded like that was more than enough and walked up to the counter. Same composed posture, same careful movements. But up close, there were details I hadn't caught the day before. Faint shadows under her eyes. A crease between her brows that didn't quite go away, even when she smiled. "I didn't interrupt anything, did I?" she asked. "Nothing important." That's a dangerous thing to admit. I shrugged, reaching under the counter for her phone. Depends who's asking. She watched me as I set it down in front of her. It should be fine now, I said. Cleared out the junk, updated a few things. It'll run smoother. She didn't pick it up right away. Just looked at it like it belonged to someone else. Funny, she murmured. What is? How something so small can just stop working properly. She tapped the screen lightly. No warning. No reason you can point to. I leaned back against the counter. There's usually a reason. Is there? Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a second, it felt like she wasn't talking about the phone again. You just don't always see it right away, I said. She held that look a moment longer, then exhaled softly and picked the phone up. It lit up instantly. No lag, no hesitation. She swiped through a few things, testing it, but her focus seemed somewhere else. Thank you, she said. Really? Like I said, not much. She reached into her bag anyway, pulling out some cash and placing it on the counter. More than I expected. You don't have to, I know. She pushed it slightly closer to me. I want to. I hesitated, then nodded. All right. Her hand lingered near the money, fingers resting flat against the surface. There was a faint tremor there, subtle enough most people wouldn't notice. You okay? I asked before I could stop myself. She gave a quick, almost automatic smile. Of course. It came too fast. I didn't say anything. Just waited. She looked down at her hand like she'd only just noticed it was still there, then slowly pulled it back. I haven't slept much, she added, quieter now. That's all. Work. Another pause. Something like that. The shop felt smaller suddenly. The hum of the old fan louder, the air heavier. Outside, a motorbike passed, its sound fading too quickly. You should rest, I said. It sounded simple, maybe even stupid. She let out a soft breath, almost a laugh, but it didn't carry any humor. I will, she said. Eventually. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder, like she was about to leave. Then she stopped. Can I ask you something? She said. Yeah. If something stops working, she began, then trailed off, searching for the rest of the sentence. Do you always fix it? I frowned slightly. Depends if it can be fixed. And if it can't, then you decide if it's worth keeping anyway. She absorbed that, eyes drifting somewhere past me, like she was measuring something I couldn't see. That sounds expensive, she said. Sometimes it is. Another silence stretched between us, not awkward exactly, just full. She stepped back finally, one hand on the edge of the counter, steadying herself for no clear reason. Thank you, she said again, softer this time. Then she turned toward the door. The bell rang as she opened it, but she didn't step out right away. Just stood there for a second, half in, half out, like she'd forgotten which side she belonged to. Hey, I called without thinking. She looked back. If it starts acting up again, I said, nodding toward the phone, just bring it back. Her gaze held mine, something unreadable flickering there. I might, she said. Not I will. Just I might. And then she left, the door closing a little too gently behind her, like she didn't want to disturb anything, including whatever it was that had almost made her stay. It started raining an hour before closing. Not heavy, just steady enough to blur the streetlights and keep people away. By 9, the shop felt sealed off from everything else, like the world had quietly decided to leave me alone. I was locking up the back when the bell rang. I remember thinking I'd imagined it. Nobody came in that late, especially in weather like that. But then I heard her voice. Am I too late? I walked out to the front, keys still in my hand. She stood just inside the door, a few drops of rain caught in her hair, her sleeves slightly damp where she must have tried to shield herself. You close at 9, she added, glancing at the clock. It's 9, I said. She gave a small nod, like she expected that answer, but came anyway. Then I won't stay long. I hesitated, then set the keys down. You're already here. That seemed to settle something. She stepped further in, letting the door close behind her. The rain softened outside, tapping faintly against the glass. I think it's broken again, she said, holding up her phone. I couldn't help it. I smiled a little. That was fast. I told you, she replied, but there was something off in her tone. Less certainty this time. I took the phone from her, our fingers brushing again. This time neither of us reacted right away, like we'd both decided not to notice. "It's not even on," I said after a second. "I know." I looked up. "Then what's the problem?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes shifted, not avoiding mine exactly, just not settling. "I didn't know where else to go," she said finally. The words landed heavier than they should have. I set the phone down on the counter without looking at it again. "You could have just said that." She let out a quiet breath, almost shaky. "I almost didn't come." "Why did you?" A pause stretched between us, longer than it needed to be. "I was driving," she said slowly, "and I passed this place, and I kept going." She gave a small, humorless smile. Then I turned around. Twice, actually. I leaned against the counter, arms folded loosely. "That's a lot of effort for a broken phone." She looked at me then. Really looked this time. It wasn't about the phone. The rain picked up again, louder now. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I nodded, like I understood, even though I didn't. Not fully. "Okay," I said. "So what is it about?" Her lips parted, like she was about to answer. But before she could, her phone lit up on the counter between us. A name flashed across the screen. Not saved as anything personal. Just a number. She froze. The ringing filled the shop, sharp and out of place. "You should take it," I said. "I shouldn't," she replied, almost under her breath. It kept ringing. She stared at it like it might stop if she ignored it long enough. It didn't. "Is it important?" I asked. A beat. "Yes." Another beat. "No." Then, before I could say anything else, she reached over and silenced it. Not answered. Just ended it. The quiet that followed felt heavier than the noise. "You can call back," I said. "I know." But she didn't move. Instead, she stepped closer to the counter. Closer to me. Close enough that I could see the faint tension in her jaw, the way her fingers curled slightly, like she was holding something in. "You ever make a decision," she said, voice low, "and it feels right, until it doesn't?" I didn't answer right away. "Yeah," I said eventually. "Happens. And then you don't know if you're fixing something," she continued, "or just breaking it differently." I swallowed, suddenly aware of how small the space between us had become. "Maybe both," I said. Her eyes searched mine, like she was trying to find something specific there. "Do you always stay this calm?" she asked. "I'm not calm." That seemed to catch her off guard. "No," she said softly. I shook my head slightly. "Just don't always say it out loud." Something shifted in her expression then. Subtle but real. Like a door opening just enough to notice. She moved even closer without meaning to, I think. Or maybe she did. Either way, she was right there now. Close enough that if I leaned forward, her phone buzzed again. Not ringing this time. Just a notification. But it was enough. She stepped back like something had snapped. "I should go," she said quickly, already reaching for her bag. "You just got here." "I know." She grabbed the phone, not checking the screen this time. "I didn't mean to," she started, then stopped, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter." I pushed off the counter, taking a step toward her. "You can stay. It's still raining." She looked at the door, then back at me. For a second, I thought she might. Instead, she moved past me, stopping just close enough that her shoulder almost brushed mine. Almost. "Good night," she said quietly. And then she was gone. The bell rang, the door shut, and the rain swallowed the sound. I stood there, staring at the space she'd just been in, replaying the moment she stepped back, because I couldn't stop thinking about what would have happened if she hadn't. She didn't come back for 3 days. I told myself it didn't mean anything. People had lives, things to do, reasons not to walk into a repair shop just to stand around saying things they didn't finish. Still, I kept noticing the door. Every time the bell rang, I looked up a little too fast. By the 4th day, I stopped pretending I wasn't waiting. It was late afternoon when she finally showed up again. No rain this time. Just heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes everything feel slower than it is. She didn't say anything when she walked in, just stood there for a second, like she needed to adjust to being inside. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice even. "Hi." That was it. No joke this time. No half smile. Just a word that didn't know where to go after it left her mouth. I wiped my hands on a cloth that was already dirty. "Phone's still working." She nodded. "Yeah. Good." Silence settled in, thick and immediate. She stepped closer to the counter, then stopped halfway, like she'd changed her mind mid-movement. I wasn't going to come back, she said suddenly. I leaned back slightly. Okay. I told myself it would be simpler. Is it? She let out a breath, shaking her head. No. Another pause. She glanced around the shop, but not really seeing anything. I signed the papers yesterday, she said. It took me a second. Divorce. She nodded. The words sat between us, heavier than anything else she'd brought in before. Are you okay? I asked. She gave a small, almost automatic shrug. I thought I would be. But her lips pressed together. It's strange. Strange how. She looked at me then, properly, like she'd been avoiding it until now. I spent so long knowing I'd leave, she said quietly. Planning it. Rehearsing it in my head. A faint, tired smile flickered. And then I did, and it just feels. She stopped. Like what? I asked. She hesitated, like the answer might cost something. Like I removed something, she said slowly. But I don't recognize what's left. I didn't say anything. Didn't try to fix it. There wasn't anything to fix. She stepped closer again, this time all the way to the counter. I shouldn't be here, she added. Why not? Her fingers rested lightly on the surface, tracing a faint line in the dust. Because this, she gestured vaguely between us, not quite meeting my eyes, was supposed to be nothing. I felt something tighten in my chest. Maybe it still is, I said. She let out a soft, humorless laugh. Is it? I didn't answer. She looked up at me then, and whatever distance she'd been holding on to before, it wasn't there anymore. Tell me what this is, she said. The question wasn't sharp. It wasn't demanding. If anything, it sounded tired. Like she'd been carrying it around longer than she wanted to admit. I don't know, I said honestly. That's not helpful. It's true. Her gaze didn't waver. You don't feel it. I swallowed. I didn't say that. Then say it. The shop felt too quiet. Even the fan seemed to hesitate between clicks. I looked at her, really looked this time. At the way her shoulders held tension even when she stood still. The way her eyes searched mine like she was already bracing for something. This isn't nothing, I said finally. The words landed, and neither of us moved. Then what are we doing? She asked, softer now. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't make things worse. So I said the only thing that felt honest. Standing too close to something we probably shouldn't. Her breath caught, just slightly. Probably, she repeated. I almost smiled, but it didn't quite happen. Definitely. A long silence followed. She didn't step back. Neither did I. For a second, just one, I thought she might reach for me. Or I might reach for her. It wasn't clear who would move first. But something held us there. Not distance. Not fear exactly. Just the weight of knowing what it would mean. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I don't think I can do something meaningless right now, she said. It wasn't a rejection. It was worse. Because when she finally met my eyes again, there was nothing uncertain left in them. And I don't think this would be. She didn't leave right away that day. After what she said, after that quiet line that didn't feel like a line at all, we just stayed there for a while. Not talking. Not moving much either. Like anything we did next would decide something neither of us was ready to name. Eventually, she stepped back. I shouldn't keep coming here, she said, more to herself than to me. I didn't argue. That felt like a boundary I didn't have the right to touch. She picked up her bag, adjusted the strap like she always did when she needed something to do with her hands. I'll figure things out, she added. I nodded. You will. She gave me a look then. Something soft, almost grateful, but it didn't stay long enough to hold on to. Take care, she said. You too. And then she was gone again. I didn't expect to see her outside of the shop. That's probably why it took me a second to recognize her. It was a week later. Late evening. I'd stopped by a small cafe a few streets over, the kind with dim lights and too many empty chairs. I wasn't there for anything specific. Just didn't feel like going home yet. She was sitting by the window. Alone. There was a cup in front of her, untouched. A small envelope rested beside it, already opened. She wasn't looking at either. Just staring out at the street, like she'd forgotten why she came. I almost turned around. This felt different. Outside the shop, there was no reason for her to be there. No excuse. But then she looked up. Our eyes met, and something in her expression shifted. Not surprise exactly. More like recognition she hadn't expected. "You don't fix coffee machines too, do you?" she said when I got closer. I let out a small breath. "Only on good days." That earned a faint smile. "Real, but fragile. Can I sit?" I asked. She hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "Yeah." I pulled the chair across from her, the space between us feeling unfamiliar without the counter. "You come here often?" I asked. "Not really." "Me neither." Another quiet moment. Up close, she looked more tired than before. Not just physically, something deeper. Like she hadn't slept, even if she had. My eyes drifted to the envelope without meaning to. She noticed. "It's nothing dramatic," she said, following my gaze. "No secret admirer." I wasn't assuming. She slid it slightly closer to herself anyway, then paused. "It's from him," she added. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. She yelled out a folded sheet of paper, already creased from being handled too much. "He gave it to me years ago," she said. "I found it this morning while packing." "Packing?" She nodded. "I'm moving out." That sat heavier than it should have. She unfolded the paper carefully, like it might fall apart if she rushed. "He wrote this before we got married," she said, eyes scanning the lines, but not really reading them. "I kept it all this time. Didn't even remember I had it." "What does it say?" She let out a small, uneven breath. "Just promises," she said. "Simple ones. The kind that sound easy when you're saying them." Her fingers tightened slightly on the page. He wrote, "I'll always make sure you feel like you're not alone, even when we're quiet." She gave a faint, almost disbelieving smile. "We got really good at the quiet part." I didn't know what to say to that. She folded the letter again, slower this time. "I think that's what broke first," she continued. "Not the big things. Just that." Her hand rested on the table, the letter still between her fingers. "I read it this morning, and I thought." She paused, searching for the right words. "Maybe I was the one who stopped noticing. Maybe I left before I actually left." I leaned forward slightly. "You don't know that." "I don't," she agreed. "That's the problem." The cafe was quiet around us. Someone moved in the background, cups clinking softly, but it felt far away. She looked up at me then, really looked. "You remind me of who I used to be when I believed things like that," she said. I frowned slightly. "That's not fair." "I know." Her voice softened. "But it's true." Something in my chest tightened, not in a sharp way, just enough to notice. "I'm not him," I said. "I know that too." "Then don't put that on me." She nodded slowly, like she expected that. "I'm not trying to," she said. "I just didn't realize how much I'd adjusted. Until I met someone who hasn't." The way she said it didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like a warning. She picked up her cup finally, took a small sip, then set it back down untouched again. "I don't want to ruin something before it even exists," she said quietly. I held her gaze. "You don't even know what it is yet." "That's exactly why." A pause. Then, almost absent-mindedly, she slid the folded letter across the table toward me. "Keep it," she said. I blinked. "What?" "I don't need it anymore." I didn't reach for it right away. "You sure?" She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the paper, not on me. "Yeah." I picked it up slowly. The edges were worn, soft from time. I looked back at her. "You're just going to leave it with me." She met my eyes then, something unsteady flickering beneath the surface. "I think I already left something with you," she said. And this time, there was no space to pretend she meant anything else. I didn't see her again for a while after the cafe. Not days this time. Weeks. Long enough that the shop went back to feeling like it used to. Predictable. Quiet in a way that didn't carry anything underneath it. I stopped looking at the door every time the bell rang. Stopped expecting anything I couldn't explain. Still, I kept the letter. Didn't read it more than once. Didn't need to. It stayed folded in the drawer under the counter, tucked between receipts and old tools, like something I wasn't sure I had the right to keep but couldn't throw away either. Then one evening, just before closing, the bell rang again. I didn't look up right away. "Are you always this slow?" she said. "Or just when it's me?" I froze for half a second before turning. She looked lighter. Not happier exactly, but clearer. Like something had settled, even if it hadn't resolved. "You disappeared," I said. "So did you. I work here." That made her smile, small but real. You know what I mean. I nodded. Yeah. She stepped closer to the counter, slower than before, like she wasn't testing anything this time. Just arriving. I moved out, she said. Finally. How is it? She thought about it. Quieter than I expected. Good quiet or bad quiet? Both. I leaned against the counter. That sounds about right. A brief silence passed, but it wasn't heavy like before. It just existed. Her eyes drifted around the shop, then back to me. You kept it? She asked. I knew what she meant without her saying it. Yeah. Why? I shrugged slightly. Didn't feel like mine to throw away. She studied me for a moment, like she was checking something. Did you read it? Once. And? I exhaled softly. It sounded honest. She nodded. It was. At the time. That matters. Does it? She asked, but there wasn't much challenge in it. I reached under the counter, pulled the folded paper out, and placed it between us. She looked at it, but didn't touch it. I think, I said slowly, people don't always break promises on purpose. Her gaze lifted to mine. Sometimes they just become someone who can't keep them anymore. She held that, quiet and steady. That doesn't make it hurt less, she said. No. Another pause. But it doesn't make it meaningless either. Something shifted in her expression then. Not dramatic. Just the softening around the edges. She rested her hand on the counter, close to the letter, but not on it. I was trying to figure out if I left too late, she admitted. Or too early. Or for the wrong reasons. And she let out a slow breath. I think I was asking the wrong question. What's the right one? She looked at me, really looked. Whether I'm still allowed to want something that feels different. I didn't answer right away. You are, I said finally. Her fingers moved slightly, brushing the edge of the paper before pulling back again. And what if I don't trust it yet? She asked. Then you don't rush it. And you? What about me? Her voice softened. Do you trust it? I thought about that longer than I expected to. I trust what's here, I said. Right now. That's not much. It's enough. She held my gaze. Something quiet passing between us that didn't need to be explained. Slowly, almost carefully, she moved her hand a little closer. Not all the way. Just enough that the space between our fingers felt intentional. I could have closed it. I didn't. Not yet. After a second, she let her hand rest there, close but not touching. I don't want to repeat something I just walked away from, she said. You won't. You don't know that. I know you're not the same person who stayed. That landed somewhere deep. I could see it in the way her shoulders shifted, like something loosened without her meaning to. Another quiet moment. Then, finally, her fingers brushed mine. Not a grab. Not even a hold. Just a light, steady contact. Enough to feel it. Enough to know it was real. Neither of us moved away. We stayed like that, hands barely touching on a worn-out counter, the shop quiet around us, the world outside doing whatever it always did. No promises. No labels. Just not nothing. And for the first time, that felt like enough. It didn't turn into anything dramatic after that. No big moment where everything suddenly made sense. No line we crossed that changed things overnight. If anything, it stayed exactly like that for a while. Quiet, unfinished, but not uncertain in the way it used to be. She kept coming by. Not every day. Not even regularly. Sometimes a few times a week. Sometimes not for 10 days. But when she did, it wasn't about the phone anymore. Or fixing anything. We'd talk. Or not talk. Some days she'd sit on the stool near the counter, scrolling through nothing, asking random questions that didn't need answers. Other days she'd just stand there, watching me work like she was trying to understand how something broken could be taken apart and put back together without losing what it was. She started sleeping more. I could tell. The shadows under her eyes faded first. Then the way her shoulders sat a little lower, less guarded. She laughed easier too, but only sometimes, and only when she forgot to hold it back. I didn't push. That was the part one learned. Before her, I thought if something felt right, you moved toward it. You didn't hesitate. You didn't sit in the middle of it and wait. But with her, waiting was the movement. There were nights we closed the shop and didn't leave right away. Just sat there, side by side, not touching, not needing to fill the silence. The fan clicking above us, the streetlights outside flickering on one by one. Once, she fell asleep like that. Just for a few minutes. Head tilted slightly toward me. Breath steady. Like her body had finally decided it was safe somewhere it didn't fully understand yet. I didn't move. Didn't wake her. Just sat there, listening to the quiet, realizing that whatever this was, it didn't need to rush to prove itself. She told me things, slowly. Not everything. Not all at once. But pieces. About the years that felt longer than they should have. About how easy it was to slowly disappear inside something that looked stable from the outside. About how leaving didn't feel like freedom at first, just absence. And I told her things too. Not because I had some story to match hers, but because she listened in a way that made it feel like even small things mattered. That was new for me. We never went back to that question. Asterisk, what are we doing? Asterisk, maybe because we already knew the answer wasn't something you said out loud. It was something you kept choosing in small ways. Like the way she'd bring coffee without asking how I took it, and get it right. Or how I started leaving the front light on a little longer, just in case she showed up late. Or how neither of us pulled away anymore when our hands brushed. It wasn't perfect. Some days she'd go quiet again, like something pulled her backward for a moment. Some days I'd feel it too. That hesitation, that awareness of everything that could go wrong if we named it too soon. But we didn't force it. We let it be what it was becoming. And somehow, that made it stronger than anything I'd tried to rush before. I don't know where it ends. I don't think she does either. But I know this, it's not nothing. And it never was. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?